Okay, so topic 4 in your notes pack is about slopes of parallel and perpendicular lines. So honestly, you could probably go through most of this notes packet without me. You wouldn't even need me. But I do want to go ahead and guide you through it in case you do need me. So the first thing it asks you to do is plot these points and make it into a rectangle. So A is negative 4, 1. B is negative 2, 4. C is 4, 0. Oh, man. As usual, ignore my poor, horrible board here. D is 2, negative 3. And then we connect, which I'm sure this is not going to be pretty because my board is so off. Ooh. Okay, not horrible, right? Just in case you can't tell, let's draw these little right angle symbols so we know this is supposed to be a rectangle. And we also know since it's a rectangle, this and this are parallel, this and this are parallel. I draw two to show their different sizes. So we know for sure it is a rectangle, okay? Now it wants us to find the slope for each one of those pieces. So we know slope from a graph, we'll use rise over run. So for AB, I'm going to rise 1, 2, 3. My run is 1, 2. So 3 halves. BC, I'm going to run from C. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm running to the left, so it's negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? 4 over negative 6, that's really just negative 2/3. Okay? CD, I'm going to rise from my D here. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, not 4. I went too far. I was looking at my other one. 1, 2, 3, right? So forget this part. And then 1, 2. So 3 halves again. Sorry about that. DA, this one is 1, 2, 3, 4. That's where that came from. And then over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the left. So again, negative 4, 6, which is negative 2/3. Oh, probably no surprise to you that there's something funky going on here. So we notice that there's a relationship between some of these lines. Okay, that's what the next slide is wanting us to get at. They're wanting us to compare the slopes as well as the lines themselves. So AB and CD, that is the first and third. You'll notice they have the exact same slope of 3 halves. Looking at my picture over here, AB and CD, that's this guy I just drew in red, and this guy I just drew in red. Well, what I notice about those lines are parallel. Okay, so I'm going to write same slope and parallel, which makes sense, right? If they're parallel, they have the exact same amount of steepness, which we know is another way you can think of slope. Okay, then it says BC and DA. Well, that's this long side and this long side, which is also parallel. When I look over here, they also have the same slope. I could probably just do this, huh? They're parallel with same slope. So now it says CD and DA. Okay, well that is the bottom two here. And over here in my picture, CD and DA, that's this side and this side. Well, those are definitely not parallel, but they make a right angle, right? So they're perpendicular, like our title suggests. And then when I look at their slopes over here, 3 halves and negative 2/3, I notice two things. If I actually had a class with me right now, I would ask, and hopefully you would notice these as well. But I noticed that the fractions are just reciprocals of each other. One's flipped over, right? And one is positive and one is negative. So I'm going to say opposite to imply the sign is different. Opposite sign and reciprocals. And I'm also going to write that the lines are perpendicular. Got some good math words there. Perpendicular, reciprocal, good math words. Okay, AB and BC. Well, again, here's AB and BC, same slopes as before. AB and BC, also perpendicular. So on my list here, I'm just going to do this. It's the same story. So we just discovered the relationship between parallel lines, perpendicular lines. Parallel lines have the same slope, exact same slope. Perpendicular lines, their slopes are opposite reciprocals. So again, opposite means different signs. One's positive, the other's be negative, and vice versa. And they're also reciprocals. Well, if that's the case, if the two lines are perpendicular, then the product of their slopes is -1. Let me give you an example of this. If I were to give you a slope of, I don't know, let's say 3/4. Well, the perpendicular slope to that would be the reciprocal, 4/3, as well as the opposite sign, in this case negative. So let's try multiplying these together. On top, 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. On bottom, 4 times 3 is positive 12. Well, negative 12 divided by positive 12 is negative 1. That should happen every time if you calculate the perpendicular slopes correctly. Okay, so the rest of this is just practice. So number 3 is a graph. This is good practice for finding slope from a graph. So this first, just what's the slope? Well, I'm going to go find 2 perfect points. I see one here. I see one here. There's probably a few others, but I'm just going for the first 2 I see. My rise is 1, 2, 3. My run is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So my slope is 1/2. In other words, 3/6. Okay, so a slope of a parallel line, a line that's at the exact same steepness and never touches, that would also have to be 1/2. It's the same. Perpendicular, however, would be an opposite reciprocal. So opposite sign and then flipped over. Okay, when it says to check them, that just means they want you to multiply what you got together and see if you get negative 1, which we do. Okay, feel free to pause if I'm going too fast. So let's try it again. This time they're giving us a table. So let's see how it changes on the top with our x's. Negative 3 to 1, that's plus 4. 1 to 6, that's plus 5. I could keep going, but I really don't need to. On the bottom, 28 to 12, that's minus 16. 12 to negative 8, that's minus 20, et cetera, but I have enough information to get my slope now. Change in y over change in x. So let's try negative 16 over 4 or negative 20 over 5. Either way, I simplify and I get just a big old 4. Oh, negative 4, sorry. Ooh, close one. Negative 4. So the slope of the line, different color here, is negative 4. So the slope of a parallel line would also have to be negative 4. Without even thinking of the picture or the visual here, it's got to be the same number. Perpendicular, I'm going to flip it and change the sign. So it has to be positive. How do I flip a whole number? Well, I know that really that's 4 over 1, right? So to flip it means I would make it 1 over 4. Checking them. Going to multiply. What do I get? Negative 1. Okay, is that all right? Continuing to practice. Now they're giving us 2 points, so we know that we can use the slope formula. If you are a little shaky on the slope formula, remember you can always use a table as your default. Just sketch a little table, fill those values in, and then you can still just look for the change in y and the change in x. I'm going to go ahead and use the formula. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Work those out and I get 6 over 2, which I know is really just 3. So parallel has to be 3. Perpendicular has to be, well, I flip it. If it was 3 over 1, that means I flip it to 1 over 3 and change the sign, which would make it negative. Last but not least, given the graph to the right, what's the slope of the line? Well, it's a horizontal line. Every single horizontal line has a slope of 0 because this is a hoi, right? H for horizontal, so the O in hoi reminds us that it's 0. So a parallel line. Well, parallel to horizontal line would be another horizontal